This is Mrs. Skotnicki here, and I am talking today about taking notes for the senior thesis. Today's screencast is going to focus on part one of the thesis notes direction. I will put together a screencast for directions part two, and that is listed down here below, but you really don't need to concern yourself with those until next week. I'd like to start by running through my expectations and explaining a little bit about why things are the way they are for this paper. First of all, I do require that for the senior thesis you take notes and you write the paper largely in your own words. I realize that this is a little bit different than the process that you have done for the pig paper, but one of the reasons is this is English class and we are concerned with language, and papers that are written in one voice flow better than papers that are written in a variety of different voices. And those different voices emerge through direct quotes. And so therefore, with an English paper, it is your goal to write as much as you possibly can in your own words. Of course, there are exceptions, and if there's the odd technical explanation that can only be said one way, then by all means put that into quotation marks and incorporate it as a direct quote. But for the most part, paraphrase the information you're researching. The other thing I'd like you to do is take notes in bullet format, and the reason you'll be doing this is so that later down the road, when your notes are complete and it is time to organize the information that you have researched to create the outline for your paper, you'll be able to move the information around easily. If each article is simply one big chunk, like a paragraph of notes, you're not going to be able to break up that information into the categories where it fits best. So use bullet format and you'll be grateful later you did. The other method that I'd like you to use for this paper is to designate a particular color or font type, if you're colorblind, for each of your different articles or sources. Save black for your analysis, and I'll explain more about that next week. I'll show you what that will look like, but eventually your notes are going to be multicolored, so that each source, for example, source 1 is blue, source 2 is red, source 3 is green, and so forth. That's going to allow you to much more easily add your in-text source citations down the road when you have moved around the information to fit into your organizational strategy. So when you take notes and when you find your first source, the first thing I want you to do with that source is to capture the source citation and put it right at the top of your notes. That way there's no confusion for you down the road when you have a piece of information about where that piece of information came from. So going along with the organizing notes by color, you'll match the color or font type of the citation to the article note itself. The total requirement for notes are to take notes on 5 to 7 sources or articles. It is best if they're not all from the same database, but certainly if you find 2 or 3 articles from SIRS and they're so good and you just can't find another article from somewhere else that's better than that third SIRS article, then that's fine. But one of the things that varying your databases is going to do for you, of course, is it extends your range as a researcher. So demonstrate to your reader that you have read widely and you have found articles from a variety of different databases, not just the one. Like I said, there may be some exceptions to that rule, but it's something to shoot for. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is then walk you through my sort of demonstration of this using the question that I proposed to use for my thesis this year. And like many of yours, it's very much reflective of what's happening in the world right now. So my question is, what are the best methods for distance learning in the secondary English classroom? And I have gone over here to ProQuest, and I'm skipping a few steps because I know you all know to log in to SIRS, ProQuest/SIRS at this point, and to find your first article, right? I encourage you, what I did was I went to my chart and I used the keyword searches that were the most effective for me, and then I simply chose an article that looked promising. Before I started taking notes, I read the article. I don't want to waste time taking notes on something that really isn't what I'm looking for. And the other really key piece to taking notes is to always keep in mind my guiding question. So one thing that's central to my guiding question is the business of methods, right? So I'm not just interested in, is distance learning effective or ineffective, although that is a concern, but I want to know how I can do it, because at this point in my life, I don't really have a choice. I'm a distance learning educator, whether I like it or not. So I want to do the best job I can. So my goal is very personally motivated, as I'm sure many of your papers are. So then, First thing I did here was I saved the article to cloud. Now you're going to need to go into Google and log yourself in. I already had to do this step in order to show you my other pages, but go ahead into Google and log yourself in. And then what that will allow you to do is to upload or save the document to Drive. And when you do that, you're going to get this little window that shows up here that says Saving to Cloud, and then it will tells you that it was successfully saved to Google Drive. Now, SIRS is nice, it gives you this link here, but I'm going to walk you through the process of getting to that article in case that doesn't happen in some of the other databases. I find the best way to get to Drive is simply to type the address in the URL at the top of your browser. So I type drive.google.com, and then that brings up everything in my Google Drive. I just uploaded that article. So I'm going to go to recent, all right, and it will show up at the top here. And some clues for me are that it's 310, right now it's 311. So yes, that seems like it's the right thing. So I open up that article. And then what that's going to allow me to do, and I'm jumping over to sort of a pre-marked up copy of this article now, is what that's going to allow me to do is to highlight information that I want to save. I find it helpful to work with the document I'm researching. And by work with, I mean either underline if I have a print copy, or if I'm working with a digital copy, then I highlight material that I think is relevant. So I've gone through and I've done that, right? So then the next step is to go to that blank notes document that you have, rather this one, and you're going to begin typing your notes here, okay? Remember that I encouraged you to get your citation at the same time you got your notes. So what you can do first is to use the feature in the database that generates the citation for you, a citation generator. Be sure you're choosing MLA 8. Sometimes it defaults to this, but sometimes it defaults to APA 6, all right? So at any rate, choose MLA 8 because that's what we use here at West Senior. Copy that, then come back over to your notes page and paste that in, all right? So you can see there that I have pasted in the citation at the top, and that I've also now gone to the trouble of pasting in off of my Google document article the highlighted portions, all right? These are not in the color of my article, however. So the next step is to take this information here, and you will have to undo the highlighting. So choose undo highlighting, and then choose using text color whatever color it is you'd like to do for that article. So then notice here, an important thing is that what you've done is you've matched your citation to the color or the font type if you're colorblind. For those of you who are colorblind, what we're looking at here is now blue. All right, I'm jumping ahead a couple steps, and so I've gone through and I have changed the color of all my highlights. See again my citation up here, and then here is the first sentence. For more than 30, or rather my first bullet is probably a better way of describing that. So then Then the final step for this set of notes is that I have to put all this in my own words, right? Because really, what I've got here technically is in quotation marks. All right. Now it doesn't come out that way because I simply copied and pasted it from the article, but this is quotation marks, right? So I need to put this in my own words. And so I like to do this a little chunk at a time. So for each bullet, I just take it one bullet at a time and I say, okay, well, how am I going to say the same information in my own words? Well, I read it out loud to myself and then I do two things. I change the vocabulary, not the keywords that can't change, but most of the language, right? And then, so I put it in my own words, and I also changed the sentence structure. So there are really two pieces to paraphrasing. So for more than 35 years, Barry Eckhouse has taught at St. Mary's College in Moraga, but this term he's taking on a new kind of student, fellow professors, right? So I paraphrase that by saying Barry Eckhouse, professor at St. Mary's College in Moraga, California, now instructs other professors how to effectively teach online. And once I've done that, I can delete that original, right? Let me show you another one just so you get a sense of what this looks like. So here, this is my original. Now, remember, it is for all intents and purposes in direct quotes, and so I have to paraphrase that, change the language, and change the sentence structure. So a 2013 survey of online learning conducted by the Babson Survey Research Group found that more than 7.1 million higher education students took at least one online course during the fall 2012 term. In my own words, in 2013, a study completed by the Babson Survey Research Group found that more than 7.1 million higher education students took at least one class online. When I'm done, I go ahead and delete the original, right? And then that's it. Now, will I need to cite these eventually? Yes, the answer is yes. And the reason, these have to be cited because even though this is my own words, these are not my ideas. And so what an in-text citation of this particular bullet will look like down the road, and I don't usually do these until I get to the rough draft, but I want you to know kind of where you're headed. It'll look simply like that, right? And that's easy for me to figure out because I have my source right up there. It's also the same color, right? Eventually all this stuff will get moved around and we'll add those in-text citations when it comes time to do your rough draft. But for right now, that's notes. So the rest of my time here today, I need to spend working on paraphrasing the information from this article. When I've completely paraphrased it, then it's done and I can move to the next article. And that's pretty much notes for the senior thesis. Senior thesis. Please let me know if you have questions, and I look forward to seeing the work that you do. Thanks.